Hello, my name is Emily Chepkor, and what am I? Professionally, I'm a lawyer, but I guess we're really having this conversation in regards to We Run Nairobi, which is a running club here in Nairobi that I founded and I lead currently. So I started running 10 years ago, and I started running because a friend of mine back then was training for an Ironman. So it was really hard to find any time to hang out, right? Because, training for an Ironman is really intensive. In the morning, you're swimming, at lunch, you're cycling, in the evening, you're running. So all of your free time back then, is taken up by physical activity. So I decided that I was going to pick up one of the three sports to try hang out, right? And I tried everything. So I tried out the swimming, but I'm not a strong swimmer. I tried the cycling, but I'm also not a great cyclist because I learned to cycle as an adult. And running was really the last one I tried, right? So I tried running, it was okay. So then I signed up for the first half marathon back then. It was called it was when we still had the First Lady half marathon. So I signed up for it, and I had just started running about 3 weeks back, and with very, very little training, I did that first half marathon really, really well, very, very well for just coming into the running and also only having had run for 3 weeks. So I did really well enough that I thought, I'm going to put my back into this a bit. So then I started running a little bit more and more, and then immediately I just decided that I'll try out a full marathon, 42K. And so I signed up for, the First Ladies Marathon was happening, I think, in March or something. And then we had the Stanchart coming up, which usually comes up in October. So I signed up for the Stanchart in October, and that's when it began. So I trained and trained and trained. And once you train for a marathon, running becomes all you do, right? There's a lot. You're running about 5 days a week. You're running really long and really early, all of that to obviously fit into everything else that's happening in your life. So it becomes a really important part of you, right? And also something that when now you've been doing this for 6 months, it's something you absolutely cannot do without, right? So then I ran my first Stanchart. I did really quite fairly well in that as well. And then as with running a marathon, every single time that you're on the course, and you get to 21K, which is such a long distance, but when you get there, you're like, oh, I've got to do this again for another 21K, right? And at that point, you're always hating it. There isn't one marathon I've run right now, and I've run 10, where in those dead zone miles, I'm thinking, I love it. No, I'm always thinking, why am I doing this? I could run a 10K and it'd be fine still. And I always say that never, ever, ever. This is the last time you find me doing this. But you cross the finish line, you're a bit happy, but you're still resolved not to do it. And then a couple days passes, and then you think back and you're like, oh, I could improve this, I could improve this, I could improve this. And guess what? I'm going to sign up for the next thing, right? So it's just gone on like that. And 10 years later, 10 marathons in. That's how it started. And then how did We Run Nairobi come out of this? So I had just done my 10th marathon, which was the Boston Marathon, which is really, really cool. I had just found out about the Boston Marathon a little later in my running life, and Boston is a bit different, and it's really, really cool. Marathons are hard, and everyone has a selling point of its own, but Boston is the oldest one, and also it's the hardest one to get into because you have to qualify to run it. And by qualifying to run it, it means you have to run a previous full marathon and do a time qualification. And usually you have to be about in the top 20 percentile of your age group to get in. So the cutoff rate is really, really tight, right? So So yeah, so you have to enter another race and be really competitive in it so that you qualify. And even sometimes when you make the qualification, you still don't get in. You have to qualify by a big margin, right? So when I learned of that, it was a good challenge, and for a long time I just thought, like, what I'm going to do is to try to get to run Boston, right? So it turned out greatly that Boston was my race number 10. And at that point it was, at that point it was just race number 10, and there will be an 11th and 12th and 13th, whatever, it will just continue, right? But when I finished Boston, I felt that like I had achieved something great, and then there was a flatness afterwards, right? Because I had like been so looking forward to run Boston, and then it had happened, and so what next? And also Boston was one of those things that there was an active, like, real challenge in getting to run it. You couldn't just enter it and run it, right? So I thought, and also it was race number 10, so I started to think, at what point will we just wrap it up, right? At what point, what's the end, I mean, knees will give out at one point, right? So like, at what point do we finish? So I thought that's a good point to pause. Actually, at the time, I was absolutely sure that this was my last marathon, right? But then I still wanted to run because, again, I have been running for 10 years, about 4 or 5 days every week. So running has really become so a part of me that I cannot do without, right? But I wanted to find a purpose in it again, which is not just marathon training, right? So then I decided, first of all, so when I ran Boston, I saw there were some people who were running as guides for disabled athletes. So I thought that was really cool, and I would try that out for blind athletes specifically. And I know that in Kenya we have Henry Wanyoike, who is an absolute great marathon runner, and he's a blind athlete. So I thought I would get a contact with that and be a guide to disabled athletes. And then that really didn't kick off. Didn't kick off, and so I thought again, and my sister was like, why don't you always like trying to get us to run, and we're not really into it, and that's just who we are. But like, maybe some other people who are not your friends want to run, and they've been seeing you running and they want to do something. So then I thought, actually, like, there are about like 1,000 ways in which you could provide community service, and so I announced on my Instagram one day that starting this Saturday, I will stand somewhere, and if you want a running partner, I'll be there. So that's how We Run Nairobi started. And on that first weekend, we were like 4 people. So 4 girls joined, and we ran and walked. And then it just continued like that. Every single Saturday, I would show up somewhere. And if you're there at the time, we would go for a run together. So little by little, the first 4 people that came out, brought their friends along, and so we grew quite steadily, so that in a year we were in that 20 to 50 fluctuating number. Which was great, it was nice, it was intimate, and actually I think that's a really good number for a running club, because you still have camaraderie, you have people you're always running with. And then one time, my friend and the girl that helped me run the running club at the moment said that, I've always just been advertising on Instagram, why don't we put up something for TikTok? And so we did. And that initial post just went wild, and that's when we got our large boom. And immediately after that weekend, we were at 150, and then it's just grown, and now we're at around like 200 to 300 every weekend. So that's how it's come around. The first one is always very, very, very special, right? Because at that point, truly, the distance is such a foreign thing, and it's such a wild thing as well, to really think that you could run for 42 kilometers, right? That's hours, right? So the first one was, and also I had no point of reference at that point. The second one, how you did in the first one, you expect to be around the same time, that you're going to be running for over 3 hours, right? And so you have that perspective. But for the first one, you really don't, right? I mean, you do train for it, and you go long each on your training. You know, you get to 35K, so you kind of still know that like you'll be out there for a really long time. You'll be by yourself, you'll have to negotiate with yourself, you'll have to talk to yourself through the distance, and especially when you hit what is called the wall, right? You have never had to gently talk to yourself as when you hit that wall, right? But actually, like starting on a starting line and you know, you have a strategy before, but like putting it into action in this one day is something that you can't prepare yourself for unless you're really at the starting line and you have done the race. So on my first marathon, yeah, I think that would be the most special thing about, yeah, that would be my most special marathon, because I learned a lot about myself, right? I looked internally like a lot for those 6 months that I trained for it. I trained for it for an unnaturally long time, right? For six months, I missed not a single run 5 days a week, right? So there was a massive lifestyle change there, and there was like a lot of introspection, and not just introspection that you know, it's not like meditation, and so I'm going to like meditate right now and, you know, look internally. It's that you're up at 4 a.m. to go for a 30K run before you go to work, right? And it's dark out and you're alone, and so you are just by yourself, and so your thoughts are just by yourself. And so when you're tired and you know, you don't have your phone, you can't take a boda back, like you have to get back home, right? So at that point, you really must talk to yourself. You know, you encourage yourself, you sympathize with yourself. So there's everything that I am right now. I think all of the good characters that I have was from that first race. All of the subsequent ones, you kind of already know what to expect, right? You know exactly what will happen at what point. So there isn't a lot of newness that happens, although, you know, your body is fresh. Your bodies will react differently on every different day. But yeah, no, the first one is really quite something else. I think distance running entirely has just really influenced the person that I am today. It's not an absolute fair statement, because, you know, I started in my 20s, so there was the partying 20s, and those still existed, like it went side by side, right? But I just knew that I had to be home before midnight because I have to run super early the next morning, right? And you can't say, you know, I don't think there's always like a massive shift that happens in life, but it's like tiny little decisions that just, you know, push you into one direction. And like, you know, sometimes there will be a massive rock falling from the sky that changes things, but most times it's just like little incremental decisions, right? So yeah, so outside of fitness, it's not even outside of fitness. So I think fitness is like central to it all, and fitness from an endurance sport, right? Like where it's not an hour that you're out running, it's 3 hours that you're out running, right? You have to endure. There will be pain, and yet you can't stop and come back home, right? You must do this so that you are able to execute the thing that you'll do later. So I like to believe I am very patient, and it takes really, and I can handle a lot usually. So even work-wise, it's whatever I have something really big, I know exactly how to like just gently get there. You know, like it takes kind of a lot to phase me at the moment, and I like that, right? But also there's grit, right? Knowing that like this thing is massive, and I know I can take it, right? You can do anything with just the right kind of preparation, and as is a marathon, right? You cannot run a marathon tomorrow. It takes a while to get ready for it, to get ready to get there, but it's not a gentle journey either, sadly, right? There will be pain that you'll have to endure. There'll be bad weather that you must run in. There will be some days you're running in blaring sun and yet you must do it. So there's just a lot of grit. You know, once you've started, you must finish. Nairobi is, well, Kenya in general, right? Like we are the running country, right? But I think when I started running, it was quite, you know, whenever I'd run, it would be a thing if I noticed another runner on the other side of the road, right? Like it wasn't like, whereas we're that country, like that's just E10 and that's professional running. There isn't a lot of just social, I'm just gonna hit a 5K and come back home, right? And there's always like the etiquette of like saying hi across the road if you see another runner or if someone's passing you and things like that. And I'd feel really great if like one day I said hello to 3 runners across the road, right? There weren't that many. All of us running at that point were always marathon running. I started running, so when I started my training, I joined Urban Soarers, who are a great club and they have real long distance pedigree, right? So I started running with them, and everyone there was always training for a marathon, right? So like it was really gung-ho distance running. And so when I was trying to find a way to make my running impactful after Boston, I definitely did not want to. I mean, you know, we have like Urban Soarers, we have Run Fit, we have many clubs around that do the nice distance running for when you have when you need company for really long distances, right? So I wanted to create something for the real beginner runner, right? And not a runner like me, someone who is just coming into running, not even running, like who just wants to come out maybe because there are other people in the neighborhood coming out, right? And then you'll decide. I always advertise that you can come for a walk or you can come for a run, you can come for a jog, you can come and mix them all, both up, right? You don't have to run. It says run in the name, but honestly, you don't have to run, right? And I'm so proud of that because I think half of our people are walkers. So yeah, from the very beginning, I always said that you don't have to be a runner, you don't have to have run before, and we started with a very light distance. We did 6 kilometers and 8 kilometers and 10, right? So nothing overly, nothing to take you out, so that even if you walked, you would be done in an hour. And then I really wanted to emphasize the breakfast part, right? It's not just, you know, you could run and go home, but I wanted it to be that, you know, if you finish, you know, we reserve one big table and we'll sit family style and we'll have a coffee, we'll have breakfast and we'll chit chat, right? But most importantly is that it needed to be a very, very beginner friendly space. And also it needed to always stay in Nairobi so you could get to it, right? So we're not running out of town. Although out of town is beautiful, right? But it needed to be inside the city. So if you're Ubering or driving, it's just within distance. And also we didn't start super early because again, this is the beginner runner. This is not the gung-ho runner. Like I myself, I'm fine to like start run at 4 a.m. But you know, this is trying to convince people to come to not go out on Friday night so that they could run on Saturday morning. So you're not also, many people will, on principle, not set an alarm before 6 a.m. on a Saturday, you know? And so it's not, you also don't want it to look like this is a hard thing that you're doing, right? So back then we started at 8 a.m. So really, you know, you could like really gently make your way. And obviously we also decided that we won't charge membership or have a registration or like have any financial relationship to come for a run, you know? So you could truly, again, like wake up, think about what could I do this morning and still just pull up, right? So that was really, really important to us. So what that has happened, like, so what happened actually this, in I think 2022 was that, no, last year, 2024, was running suddenly became a popular sport. It was really very strange to me because it really wasn't, right? And then suddenly I think like some running clubs in the UK started gaining real traction, and all across the world now running clubs became a thing, right? And then So what I think our value there was that we were a very beginner friendly space, and most of the people now were seeing on TikTok, on Instagram, that like running clubs were a thing, and there were girls just like them out running, and they wanted to try out a thing like that, right? So I think that we already had this set up then, and we really emphasized that you could just come out for a walk, just try it out. So I think that helped in that conversion of, I've never run, what can I expect, to just come. There will be other people, and likely there will be other people like you. You'll find a partner. You'll be able to walk, run, or try something out together. So then that, and then I think what I've observed actually is everyone that joined us last year and they were doing a run for the very first time in their life, they came out and they tried a really light distance, and then the next weekend they tried on the next longer distance and the next longer distance. So that when the Nairobi City Marathon was coming around, and then when Standard Chartered Marathon was coming around, they had like over several weekends moved from being absolute non-runners to being gentle beginner runners, to seeing that, there's this challenge that's coming up, I'm going to sign up for it. And because also everyone else not everyone else, like many people in the club, which is now like quite big, were signing up for it and talking excitedly about it. So again, it just sounded as if there will be other people out there like me trying this out for the first time. So we had our club actually had a record number of sign-ups for Standard Chartered, and these were people who were doing a 10K on a race or a half marathon on a race for the absolutely first time, right? Only a couple of months having had started running. So I think what we were there was a bridge, right? We provided a place to try something out in a space that was okay to try something out, because there were going to be other people like you, and there wasn't a commitment pressure. You could come in and out. There was nice breakfast afterwards, and it was also a nice place. So it was an okay place to spend your Saturday, even if you're not like coming out to set a PB for a 5K. Yeah. Okay, it's the worst, because what I'm going to say is what usually I say to myself when I'm meeting something new. But then I think I know exactly again what to say to someone who hasn't started out, right? And like if this looks intimidating, but for myself, I'm usually just like, just start, right? It's just. If it's sports, if it's the gym, if it's whatever, like if you've decided on December 31st that in this year I will be that babe, I'll be about the gym, I'll be about the healthy eating, I'll be about whatever. Set a date, and then on that date, don't snooze. It's hard, right? It is hard. It's not a gentle thing, waking up and doing a thing before also you go to a full-time job that requires you to be absolutely physically present. But that's just what it takes, right? Just do it, honestly. Set that alarm, and when it goes off, like, just don't be happy, but just do it, right? Just start, right? If you've decided, if it's a run, I think joining a club, joining a community, whichever one in the city, is so good, because first of all, like, it's an inbuilt accountability partner. So it's not, I can understand how like waking up and leaving your house by yourself and going out, and especially if you live in an overly urban area, then you have to go out, find a route, you have to worry about your safety against traffic and everything. I understand how that could be like a real hindrance and maybe not even make the activity pleasant, right? But then, so join a community, right? I think all of the running clubs around right now have a run absolutely once a week, right? In the most minimum. Just find a community like that. It's an inbuilt accountability partner. It's very, you know, what you would have had to design for yourself, the route, you know, the route for the exact distance that you want, which is also like, you know, like if you have to figure it out for yourself, then you have to like check out your neighborhood, you know, how many, you know, kilometers is this road, and then when do I turn, how do I loop it back to my house? But then that work is done for you at a running club, you know, and then usually you will find someone who's absolutely at the same exact pace and the point of life that you're at, right? Because most of the messages that come on our social media when people are trying to figure out if they can join is that if they'll find someone to run with. And usually I'm like, honestly, just come, I assure you, you will, right? And what happens is that once we start out, people will start separating according to their paces, right? So at every one point, there'll be a little group of people that have formed that are at the same exact level of effort, right? So you always will find a partner. So yeah, so if it's about, I don't even want to call it running, I'm just going to call it movement, right? If it's about movement, just try it out, right? We have 3 runs a week, every Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. So, you know, I mean, if you put that into a calendar already, you're kickstarting your movement. And little by little, you know, then you are forming the resilience in your mind. And so you'll sign up for a gym, and maybe that's an easy execution for you. And again, like the running club is not, you know, we're not like marathon training running clubbers, right? It's just a place for movement, and you don't have to come every weekend, right? Just make it a part of your routine. Like maybe this weekend you run, the next weekend you do whatever challenge is going on at your gym, the next weekend you do a hike, but then you just get into the habit of knowing that there will be a time where activity will be the thing I do, and it's not a barrier right now because already, like, I have kickstarted it in this way, and I know that if I go somewhere else, there will be people. In the gym, there are people, you know? So yeah, so I think it's not like I'm not being a gym bro, although it's not a bad thing to be a gym bro. I'm not like just being a gym bro that's saying, you know, just start, just do it. But honestly, it's just that. It's when you decided you'll do it, just show up. So I have lived abroad over like several spates of my life, and when I was in England, the one thing that actually everywhere I've been, the first thing I have looked for as a way to get into the social life of the city is a running club, right? I mentioned England first because I think they really thrive there, right? So God, and now it escapes. What's the name? Park runs, right? So whichever city you would be in England, you could just type a park run and you'll find like what run is happening there. And again, it was just the same format. It was very easy entry. You went out exactly for a 5K. It was usually in a nice park somewhere, and there were like 400 people, right? So then you got to know everyone in the neighborhood because it felt like everyone who lived around was here at a park run, you know? So Kenya is like a running destination. There isn't anything we're prouder than when we see our boys and girls finishing and, you know, collecting those medals, right? And I think even Kipchoge is doing this, right? Like he is trying to make running not just marathon running, not the distance, you know, hard work of marathon running, but he's just trying to get like people to run and move, right? So yeah, so on the one hand, you know, Kenya is this running powerhouse, but I think before now it really was quite, as I mentioned, it's quite rare that you find like just, you know, running on the streets, which is which I mean, like if I think about it on a tourist level, like, you know, if you're coming out here for safari, so you're coming for safari, but you kind of know that like Kenya is a running countries, right? So like stereotypically, I would just assume that like, oh, every street every single morning there's just people running, and like that's just the country that this is. But that isn't the case, right? So I'd kind of like to like have that impact but not just for the physical aesthetics, so we fit into this running country, but like where the running is demystified, and it's not that to run you have to run like our country's distance, which is like super long distances, right? Like you could just go out for a 3K, go out for a 5K, right? It's just there are people constantly moving, and that's, I think that's expected, and it really like sits into a culture, so that even if you're driving and there's traffic on roads, like they have a real culture of like respecting, like if there isn't a pavement, you know, sharing the road with runners, or that there should be pavements all over, right? Because they're like making room for runners, because every neighborhood like would just expect that like at some point there'll be people running on these paths, right? Or even sometimes we get concerns for running because of like matatu, and you know, matatu like the heckling culture and things like that. And so like, you know, to like get that out of the way, because like running has become so common that like that is just like a thing that you do. Sorry, I keep saying running, but like it doesn't matter, like the walking, the running, it's all of that, right? To really like turn it into that yeah, like you just can expect always to see people running, and you know, like running comfortably. You know, you're not running in shorts and someone is like heckling at you, you know, something like that. So yeah. In the later years of running, when I started becoming aware that I have to hang the boots at one point, because also, you know, running is quite physically exhausting with age. Sadly, you know, the knees become an issue, the hips become an issue, and all of that. So I already started, I knew that always I need something to do, and because I started with marathon running, it just has become in my head that it needs to be a hard thing as well, right? So then I wanted like another vigorous sport, but like that was a little bit kinder on the body. So I picked up tennis entirely, and it's been a really humbling process. It continues to be a very humbling process, because it's a skill really hard acquired. But now I'm also like so obsessed with mastering the skill that if all I could do was play tennis the whole day, I would do that. Outside of that, I think I would teach. I like being in that like position where I share what I know with others. Although that would be the law. I don't think I know anything else that well. So yeah, I think I would find something, a position that would be in teaching, or a really terrific athlete. I see. I tennis a lot. I read a lot. I travel quite a bit. And what do I do? Sadly, I have given up the going out, and I have really become the most boring friend. So that is like I'm in bed at 8 p.m. and it is quite sad. But I read a lot. I see. So I don't read non-fiction. I read just purely works of fiction. As a choice I made a long time ago, and I've just like stuck to it, and there's no reason. But I also believe that a lot of any lessons or any lessons that can be told in a story. You know, but secondly, like there's a lot to learn from the stories of others, right? So even, you know, you could read a book that is, you know, 9 steps to surmounting your biggest challenge, or you could read a story about someone who has gone through like surmounting a challenge has gone through. So I like works of fiction a little better, because, you know, actually they are a great way to pass time, because, you know, you can, if you crack open a book at the end of a day, and it's a story and like a to-do to do, you know, the 3 steps to becoming a terrific boxer. You know, it's and it's just it's a story, so it's gentler and everything. I find that to be a little bit a better way of introducing different perspectives or change in my life. Yeah. We are absolutely free, and that is so at the very core of us that if anything else were to change, this would be the thing that I would insist remains the same, right? That not once do we have people paying to come out to run. Like, I think running should be really simple. You know, there isn't like equipment involved. It's just you and air and atmosphere. You're just going out. And I think charging for that takes away from that. And so, like, absolutely, we would always hold that line, right? But also, I've gotten lost. But yeah, I mean, there are now that the group is massive, and you know, we've got like, there's always costs on the back end of running the group. There are like some really incredible people who run with us, like here, for example, who run with us, that I always, because I kind of know everyone and kind of know everyone's journey, because I'm the point of contact for so many people. I know like how they started and where they're at, and when I see them finish, like cross the finish line at Stanchart, I know exactly like what it's taken them to get there, and like I'm the archivist of this information, right? And I usually really just want one to be able to like offer them like nice, exciting tokens, just being like, oh, you know, Salma, like, you've run with us like for 6 months, and here you are like finishing Stanchart, right? Like, here's a badge of honor or whatever, like a voucher to go treat yourself or things like that, right? So there's that. There's the cost that we have of now like pulling off the runs as well, which, you know, because we are a much bigger group, we have to have more marshals on the course and things like that. And all of these things right now, and also like all of us at the back, the administrative end of the club, right? All of these things right now are being done on a volunteer basis, because again, like, we don't have resources. So that is one area in which, if we would just find a big corporate sponsor that would take us for their project, that would really be so great. But also, as I mentioned, that, you know, we have like really great running talents, right? And it'd be nice to have them like kitted and like try out for podium finishes in races like that, and you know, like, we'd have some pride of association, but also like it would foster some, like, it would help advance that talent without just being from E10, where you are an absolute rock star running London Marathon, right? But you could be an absolute rock star running Kigali Marathon, right? That like we sponsor you to get there. Maybe you don't podium finish, but you really feel like you have the weight of like a community cheering you on, and we know you will always you will also do so well, right? So yeah, there's so many of this little like more applaudy gifts that we wanna have, you know, for people who've just started out and they're doing well, to encourage them, or people who are really good, and like we kind of want to highlight that talent, you know, and also just for our sustainability, to help us keep going.